All right, our next speaker for this evening, John Bush. He's the Executive Director for Texans for Accountable Government, the Education Director of Foundation for a Free Society, and co-founder of Operation Defuse. John, come on.
My name's John Bush. I'm a radical activist from Central Texas, traveling all the way from Austin to be here to speak to you guys, and want to give a big thanks to Ian Coffey, Danny Panzella, and Gigi Bowman for putting this event together. It looks like a really good turnout, so give them a round of applause. Today I'm going to be speaking about the importance of being bold in the pursuit of truth, and the importance of being bold and radical in the pursuit of freedom. Yeah, keep it radical, keep it bold. So I wasn't planning, last time at Liberty Festival I talked about being bold in your truth and the pursuit of truth. I wasn't planning on speaking about it again, but there were some extenuating circumstances that took place with this event and also within our movement that caused me to revisit it. So essentially the message I'm trying to convey is do not cower from the truth, even if the truth may be unpopular, or if we do, we allow the lies and deception to permeate and continue to harm our society. We allow these to go unchecked, and I'd like to tell a story. On the way up here, I hopped on a plane at Austin Bergstrom International Airport, and while I was there going through, we don't even have body scanners there, but I saw a young girl. She must have been 8 years old. She was in a wheelchair, and she was getting a pat down from a TSA agent. Snapped a photograph, and then I walked up to a supervisor, and I said, "Don't you guys feel silly when you guys are patting down some 8-year-old girl in a wheelchair that's handicapped? She's obviously not a terrorist." She said, "Well, we have to protect you guys. They've been using little children." So I said, "So if they used a cavity bomb, you'd be sticking your fingers up our ass next time. Is that what you're saying?" And she said, "Oh, that's nasty." And I just walked away. I said, "You enjoy your paycheck, lady. We will hold people like you accountable." And the reason why all that stuff's happening is because of 9/11. It's because the event that happened 10 years ago today, just down the road from here. I pull into New York City and I see police officers with automatic weapons that are fully armored, checking people's bags. I saw a bag check stop on the subway station on the way up here. Then you got this see something, say something campaign that's turning us all against each other. This is all because of 9/11, right? If it wasn't for 9/11, the American public wouldn't be standing for this BS. I guarantee you, if it wasn't for 9/11, we wouldn't be standing for hands in our pants and body scanners. We wouldn't be standing for unreasonable searches and seizures on the subways. We wouldn't be standing for Janet Napolitano and her big sister bullshit. But I see a disconnect within the liberty movement. We're against those programs. We're against the body scanner. We had the We Won't Fly thing. We're against the Department of Homeland Security diffusion centers. We're against Big Sister. But so many people in the liberty movement seem to be afraid to touch the issue of 9/11. And I don't much appreciate it. So my question is, where do you draw the line? Which conspiracy theories are taboo? Is the Jekyll Island conspiracy taboo? No. Ron Paul's pimping that all over the stage, all over the public in the spotlight. What other conspiracies? What about the 1953 CIA Iran coup? Is that too taboo? No, that seems to be fine for the liberty movement, even for Ron Paul. What about Agenda 21? Is that too taboo? The United Nations? No, that's not too taboo for Ron Paul or for the liberty movement. Even FEMA detention centers seem not to be too taboo. If you watch the last debate, Ron Paul even said they're building a Mexican border wall to potentially keep us from leaving the country. Why is all of that not taboo enough to talk about? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the establishment has busted their ass to kookify the subject of 9/11, to make it appear as if you talk about 9/11, then you're a crazy freak. And unfortunately, the liberty movement is cementing and solidifying that very notion. And I don't much appreciate it. Some will say it was 10 years ago, it's irrelevant. But if you walk around the streets of New York City, you'll see just how relevant 9/11 truly was. And I believe if we can shatter the illusion that 19 terrorists with box cutters threw those planes into the towers, then we'll be able to more effectively roll back these tyrannical programs. But again, the liberty movement seems afraid to go there for some reason. One thing for the establishment, it's one thing for the establishment to quell and squash 9/11 truth. It's another thing for our own movement to do it, or for political campaigns to do it. You can know the establishment is winning whenever we are trying to silence each other and silence ourselves. And once again, I don't much appreciate it. I think this happens for a number of reasons. Chief among them is when people have a confusion between means and ends. The end is the ultimate goal that people try to achieve. The means is the tactics that they use in order to achieve that end. There's a lot of people that think political campaigns, the Ron Paul campaign, for example, is an end in itself. Like if we were to elect Ron Paul, then everything's done. We're free now. He's elected. Yeah, I can go about my business. I'm a free man. That's just not the case. The campaign ought to be a means to the end. So what is the end? Well, in my opinion, the end is the creation of a wholly free society based on mutually beneficial voluntary associations. No coercion, no control, no hierarchical institutions that force you to do things you don't want to do. 100% freedom. Right? How's that sound? Does that sound crazy? So when people think that the campaign is the end in itself, sometimes they avoid talking about taboo topics or goofy topics. Sometimes they even avoid talking about the realities of creating a stateless society. And I think this is damaging to our movement. It allows lies to permeate. It allows them to keep the perpetual police state growing. And if we do not hold our ultimate goal above us, which is the creation of a free society, how can we ever hope to achieve it? So I recommend people talk about 9/11 truth, talk about anarchy and voluntarism all the time in every instance, even if you're on the campaign trail for Ron Paul. That's right. People are all too often trapped in the idea that campaigns and politicians can create freedom. If you have to ask permission to be free, you're only affirming how unfree you truly are. That's why I recommend people go post-political, and people do not be afraid to speak the truth. So go post-political and simply choose freedom, right? So what is post-political? Well, it's not about restoring America now. It's about creating a free society. I'm not entirely sure that the United States Constitution is even compatible with individual liberty. Remember the 3/5 compromise? What about the Electoral College? Or what about the taxing ability of a hierarchical, centralized, geographic monopoly on force and the provision of justice? This is not creative liberty. Let's say that we do restore America now, and we go back to the 1789 level of freedom in the United States. Freedom, yeah. I think only about 10% of the people that existed in North America even had a say in the Constitution. Not to mention the motherfuckers that wrote it were slave owners. How's that for freedom? What if we go back to that day, to the Constitution? Who's to say we're not simply going to fall into the same tyranny that we're at today? I would say that we'd actually find that tyranny a lot quicker because the American public has their heads so far up their asses. I'm not a big fan of the Constitution, really. I was an Articles of Confederation guy, to tell you the truth. Alright? So, to illustrate that point, like Lysander Spooner said, either the Constitution created the problems we have today, or it was powerless to prevent them. Either way, it's unfit to exist. So in the absence of the Constitution, what do? Well, I recommend you go post-political and we create alternative institutions that are based on voluntarism, based on peaceful trade amongst individuals that are freely cooperating with each other, not forcing anything. So what does that look like? Well, let's take the End the Fed movement, for example. A lot of people say, how do we end the Fed? Let's end the Fed by passing a piece of legislation, like if Congress wants to give up that power. People need to realize that allows them to stay in office. They don't have to raise taxes as much, even though they do. They don't have to raise taxes as much because they can simply print the money. Well, one thing that we're doing down in Central Texas is we're beginning to create competing currencies. One of the things we're doing is we're trading with silver dimes. Pre-1965 silver dimes, it's 90% silver, it's worth over $3. We've found vegetable gardeners at the farmer's market. We have a chiropractor that takes silver, a veterinarian, a dentist. So the best way to end the Fed is to stop using the Federal Reserve note. And the motherfucker will end itself. Right? Another thing we can do is create communities of safety. We launched a program called Lone Star Smart. It's the Sovereign Mutual Aid Response Team. We're taking care of each other. We're trying to render the state irrelevant. Any problems that we have as a community, we can take care of ourselves. We don't have to go to some centralized hierarchical institution in order to solve our common problems. We can solve them ourselves. So that's what going post-political is all about. Leaving the politicians, leaving the institution to crumble within itself, and building the communities based on freedom, happiness, peace, and love. The next thing we need to do is to stop asking permission to be free and go ahead and live free now. Your right to travel, if you have a driver's license, you gave up your right to travel, you transferred it into a privilege. If you got a concealed carry license, sorry for New York City folk, then you took away your right to keep and bear arms, turned it into a privilege. If you pay income tax, you gave away your right to own the fruits of your own labor. It's by time we stop all that shit. And I know it's scary, and I know it's fearful, and I know their guns are big, and their boots are strong, and they can keep your door down and take you away. But I gotta say, there's strength in numbers, there's strength in unity, and there's strength in truth. And we have all three of those things, and if we just stand up, then there's no holding us down. So, thank you everybody.